Hey, how's it going, everyone? Yeah, my name is Marshall Stukes. I go by Stukes. That's my last name, obviously. Yeah, I've been producing music for I guess since 2008-ish. My friend showed me FL Studio in college because that's what he used when he was in high school, and I just ran with it. I didn't know what I was producing really until I had a coworker that also produced music, and I was like, "Hey, you know, I make music, and but I don't know what to call this." He was like, "Oh yeah, this is techno." I'm like, "Okay," and that was like 2016, I want to say. No, 18, 17. But anyway, after that, I knew like I should, you know, go into a deeper dive into the world of techno. So I I had listened to electronic music before, but it was all over the place. So yeah, I've been producing techno ever since. Um, I also that coworker actually put me in touch with another producer named Bernard Farley who started Black Techno Matters, who was gracious enough to let me help run the organization. That's how I got in touch with Bonria and a bunch of other folks. So yeah, let's get started. So I have um, a kick here, just like a simple kick, um, a hi hat, and another hi hat. It's more of a shaker though. Um, and then I have a couple loops here. So my process is really um, basically going through my samples folder and just like picking out sounds, things that I think that um, sound good together. Um, and then I tend to go either one by one and like manipulate them to something that sounds either better or different. Um, and then I'll just like have it in um, this pattern view here. Um, or I'll start with like an ambiance or like a certain sound or sample, and I'll manipulate it, and then um, I'll go off of that. So um, I think today I'll start with the let's do this. Uh, I like to um, organize my sessions while I go, so like I know um, what goes, what is what. So let's see how this sounds. Uh, okay, I didn't like that. Um, let's see, kick. All right, let's start with the kick first then. I'm also a go with the flow kind of person. I could start a session and it could take me like up to, it could take me a day, it could take me a week. I've had tracks that I've literally started in like and finished in like a year or two. My last track that I released with Black Techno Matters is called Closing, and I had actually recorded that sample that I used in 2017 when I was working in DC. So it just like depends on what I'm feeling. Let's actually route this. So I'm routing this kick to another channel here. Move this over. And I'm going to add in a delay. And then I'll add in a filter, an EQ. So that's how, this is primarily how I get some of my my basses, just the kick repeated and a dotted pattern, dotted eighth note pattern, and I filter it, and then I'll sidechain it with this LFO tool, so you can hear the kick come out a little bit more.
I have a question. Sorry, are we supposed to hear what you're doing?
Yes, can you not hear?
No.
Okay, give me 1 second.
No, thanks.
Can you hear that?
Yes, yes.
Can you hear that?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Let's see. So this is the kick pattern. Just sidechaining the bass with this LFO tool, which basically brings down the volume. You can see here it's ducking the volume. I'll move on to hi-hat, add in a new pattern. Let's do something with this one. So something a little basic for now. But what I like to do with my hats to add rhythm is to, again, throw in a delay. Let's try out, since we're using Replica. Replica is from, I want to say it's from, Native Instruments. But you can use any delay plugin, really. The ones built into your DAW are probably best, but I've just been using Replica for a little bit right now. And my thing is, like, I love presets because it does most of the work for you. But in order to make it yours, you should like tweak it a little bit. And even further, you could modulate it. So you change the rhythm or the sound over time. Let's try this. Yeah, I like that one. Let's turn down the mix a little bit. Sounds good. Let's add in another hat pattern, and this time we'll work with this shaker here. So I like to have a constant 16ths just to give the track energy. But I also don't want to have it like stagnant. So that's pretty boring. So I mess around with the velocity of each hit, and I tend to just like draw something random, and then see how it sounds. That sounds good too. Yeah. Let's go for. I'll skip these loops for right now. Let's add in some ambiance. So I have a few go-to plugins. Arcade is a good one from Output. It's basically a sampler that a sample subscription. But you could get, a few months free. I think it's like $10 a month. It's worth it for me because it's literally in every single one of my projects that I've made in the past like year or so. It's a great starting point for sounds. But let's do something. There we go, atmospheric. All right, so in that preview, there was one sound that I liked, so I'm gonna run through these. All right, let's go with that one. Okay, I'm not really feeling that in context. that sounds pretty good. So I routed this to another channel here, and then I'm going to basically add in another plugin that shapes the sound a little bit more. And when I say a little bit, I mean by a lot. Again, this is my output. It's called Portal. It's a granular delay. So it basically chops up the sound that's being fed into smaller grains. And then you can either, you can change the size, you can stretch the grains, and then you can add in like different effects. But I don't tend to do these manually. I again go through the presets most of the time because it'll give me a good starting point, and then you know, if I like something, then I'll keep it, but then I'll modulate it again over time over the track. So we'll listen. Okay, that sounds good. I'm going to add in a reverb onto our sample here. My go-to reverb has been the Valhalla Vintage Verb from Valhalla DSP. They make really good plugins. I think they're about $30 a pop. But let's. Okay, I want to dial this shaker here back a little bit. I think the tail is a bit long, so in FL Studio we have envelopes that you could use to modulate the sound. So attack is like how much time it takes for for the sample to go to full volume. Hold is when you know have that how long it stays at full volume, and then the decay is how long it goes down to the second stage, and then sustain is how long it sustains that that volume, and then release is how long it takes after you're done playing for the sound to go back to negative infinity or zero. So I'm going to dial this into something that's more staccato, something more and this gives us a great way to build up energy in the track. So you can start out here like this, and then so to do that in FL Studio, we have you right click and you create automation clip, and it's basically like a line that the parameter that you use follows. So what I'll do here, up to content, is change. Yeah, I like that starting. So I'll do this. You don't have to do this. This is a very like in the weeds of production, but basically I took that the value of this decay and set it to the minimum. So if I go here and go down to 0 on my automation clip, it'll always go to this value instead of all the way to 0. And then I'll find a value that I like. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a little too much, so I'll dial it back. And I'll do the same thing, but with the maximum. So now when I go from 0 to max, it'll be that that max value here. So I'll solo these. You can watch the. Yeah, sounds good. Let's see. So this is Massive X. It's a synth from Native Instruments. If you couldn't tell, I have like a handful of like audio production companies that I like, and I just stick with them because it's basically if you go and look for 5 billion different plugins to use, you never really get to know one plugin. So I tend to use like the same 5-6 plugins. It might not look like it because I got like a whole bunch here, but yeah, I just use the same ones, and you get a plethora of sounds. Let's try something out. So with this, I'm just looking for the like the highest volume of that sample that we threw in from Arcade. It's looking like either it's a chord, but I want to take the an F note. So I can add in let's see. For sample Atmos, yeah. So that. We'll throw this into a audio track or mixer track, and then we'll bring down the volume a bit because that was pretty loud. Sounding good. Let's add a little bit more energy with some more percussions. So again, I use samples and presets to basically start my project. They give you a good starting point. So you're not in the weeds of like, oh, I want this sound and I'm gonna like design it. The best for me, the best way to get to a good vibe is to start with a sample and then manipulate it. So I have a bunch of sample packs from Soma. It's a record label, and I believe they're based out of England. Let's see, percussions. We have some loops here. That's where I got these from, but I'm gonna find something a little bit more. You know, I was looking for energy, but I think this would fit in the track. We could add in more energy elsewhere. So again, I'm going to add in a little bit more, some more rhythm with Portal. I absolutely love Portal. It's like one of the best, in my opinion, one of the best plugins you can get. If you're going to get one to like do sample manipulation, this one's a great one to use. Let's try some presets out. Let's see. So going back to the energy, I normally add in energy through rides, and I have a bunch of Vengeance sample packs here that I've used since college. Basically, I haven't really. These are the main ways I get most of my percussions or cymbals. You can see here I have like even a dubstep one, but you know, it doesn't really matter what the label is for the sample pack as long as you get a good sound out of it. So we'll go into the ride here. So most of the time when I'm looking for a sample, I have the track in mind, and I think I'm thinking of like what would sound good with it. So I think this one would. Let's go and add in a new pattern here. Ride. Again, it's good to be organized so you know what everything is. I like to keep mine kick up top, and then the rest of the percussion, and then the other audio layers that I have. So the way I do my rides is either in a just, broken pattern like this, like normal, or I tend to fill in every other step. But then after I do that, I sidechain it. But that's before I add in some distortion with a free plugin called Saturation Knob. So it's like that wavy, bouncy feeling. Let's see how that sounds in context. Yeah, that sounded pretty good. Let's add another hat here. Just to layer it up. And I might change out this one here to something else. If not, we can just go back to it. yeah. So that's how I tend to start off projects. From here, I might add a few more elements, and then I would arrange it out, building, um, modulating, building energy by modulating different parameters. So I might go into like the synth here and see. Yeah, that sounds pretty cinematic. So that definitely would go great into like going into like the breakdown, build that energy, and then um, have something for the breakdown, and then the drop, obviously. So yeah, I think it's Q&A time. Okay. Hey, Coco here. Thank you for the presentation. Quick question on the kicks you use. Is that from FL in the box, or do you use samples? How do you go about mixing your low end? So my kicks, this one's from a sample pack called Raw Techno Kicks. Um, Honestly, I don't remember where I got it, the pack from. It might be from, might have found it on Reddit, through like either the FL Studio subreddit. But yeah, I tend to use kick samples, and then I'll manipulate them a lot. There's a plugin in FL Studio called Patcher, which is like an effects chain, but like um what on just like on steroids basically. So you can add in um different plugins here. So if I were to take this out and add in replica, this is just a standard, okay. And then I'd add in parametric EQ here. And then I might add in some distortion. It's a great plugin from Soundtoys called Decapitator. Very intimidating name, but it's a great like drive plugin. And I might do that as well. So basically, what I'm trying to get at here is the same thing I did in this send. So I sent my kick out to this channel here with the delay and the EQ. Also add in my sidechain, and this right here is basically the same thing as me putting this stuff here. It's just a better visualizer, I find. So the audio, these lines, this is where the audio is routed from, and you do this with most of my samples because I mean I've had friends of mine like say, oh yeah, I've heard that kick before, or I've heard that sample before. So, which is not a bad thing as long as it sounds good in context of your song. But I tend to take samples as a baseline, and then manipulate them so it sounds like more unique. To answer um, your second question, I honestly, I'm not great at mixing. I'm still learning. I the way that I go about trying to figure out whether or not low end is good is I listen to it in different environments. So I'll use my headphones. I have a couple different pairs of headphones. I have my speakers, and then I'll like use it. I'll mix down a demo and throw it on my phone and listen to it on my on my either my earbuds or my AirPods. Um, and if it sounds good on like all of those, great. But I do tend to just like EQ down, making sure like the low end is not like muddy with with a bunch of frequencies. Um, One thing that I've noticed is that um, you get that muddiness if you have a bunch of different um, elements in your track all occupying that same space. So, for example, let's listen to this right here. And then we'll throw in an EQ for a visualizer. So you can see here, low end is pretty good. But then if I go into our, I think, sample here. Yeah. 7. And I throw in an EQ here. Okay, this isn't bad, but you still have some like bass here, but we want more of the higher these low mid to mid frequencies. So I'll just chop this off so we're not getting anything here. And then go here to this synth. And this is a bunch of low end. And then I'll do the same thing. I'll just either bring it down or as a shelf, because I still kind of want it, but not as much. I don't want it to compete with the kick, so I'll just bring it down or I'll cut it, and then I'll just see how it sounds. Let's do. Yeah. So this sounds a little better. This sounds better than before because we cut out the low end for the that sample, the synth that we have from Massive. So now it's not competing with your bass, your kick and bass. So basically, just make sure that the sounds that you have in your track are only the frequencies that you want them to have, if that makes sense. So for like, if you were to have like a string sample, for example, you wouldn't want it to have a bunch of low end, so you just cut that out. Thank you. Would you please type the name of the kick sample and plugin? Your screen's hard to make out. Sure. So it's that's the basis of the sample. The delay plugin that I use is Replica. And then this is the Fruity Parametric EQ, which is the built-in EQ for FL Studio. And then this distortion drive plugin is called Decapitator.
Okay, so some of the things I wrote were, so you can throw in a delay to add rhythm, right? We spoke about like using granular delay for shakers, for example, which the granular delay chops the sample into smaller delays, and you can like modulate through changing the side or like stretch the delay. Did I get that right?
Yeah. Yeah, the granular delay. So what it does is it chops up the sound that's being fed into the delay into smaller.
Maybe don't do it right now.
Mhm. Then with the reverb, you like your favorite plugin is Valhalla Vintage Verb. I think after this, maybe we can do a recap of like the plugins you mentioned and the effects you used. Then we can attach to this recording once we share.
Yeah, I can definitely send over the plugins that I use. Yes.
Okay. Also, you spoke about modulation as an effect with the envelope, the ASD, the attack, delay, sustain, and release envelope.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. We also talked about sample manipulation using a plugin called Tutor.
Mm-hmm.
Are the plugins only FL based or also can be, or rather the universal plugins can be used with different DAWs?
Yes. You can use most of the plugins that I used in the demo and any DAW because they're just VSTs. So any application that can load in a VST will be able to use them. The only ones that you will not be able to use in like Ableton, for example, would be the Fruity Parametric EQ2. That's a specific plugin is only for FL Studio, but Ableton has its own built-in EQ. The other one is Patcher. That's a FL Studio specific plugin, but that's just basically another way to do audio routing. You don't really need it to the things that I was doing in the demo.
Okay. Also mentioned ways to add energy, such as adding rides, which you can You either set them through the four, like every four step, or every other step, and then side chain that. Um, where where would you normally side chain it to? But I don't know if you mentioned, if you demonstrated that part of the side chain.
If I have a 4 on the floor kick, I'll just add in the LFO tool. There are other ways to sidechain. You can sidechain based off of like um, the kick level, or you can do it through other like direct modulation of the volume. But I tend to use the LFO tool and just change the LFO that's provided there to best suit the um, the track. Um,
And this would um, help achieve like a wavy, bouncy feeling to it.
yes, because the audio from the levels for the ride go up and down, so it's like a like a more of a groove, um, but like a constant groove.
Like a constant groove, or what did you say?
Hmm. Yeah, a constant groove. Yeah.
So how is it constant if the levels are going up and down?
Um, Constant in a way like it's not like broken up. Um, you can predict it basically.
Hmm. Okay. And what would you define as a groove, and the definition of the rhythm, according to you?
To me, that's a good question. I guess rhythm would be how a sound is being played, and the groove would be the feeling of that rhythm. So you could have two things that are playing in the same rhythm, but they would have a different groove based off of um, like the different things that are affecting that sound. That makes sense.
Mhm. So let's see. So if we just like a example, a rough example, so maybe like a 4x4 uh, right? Like 1, 2, 3, 4. So that would be the rhythm, right?
Hmm.
And then the groove would be like ta 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 ta. I don't know.
Yeah, no, exactly, exactly.
Oh, okay, okay.
It's like so you would have the four beats, but the groove would come in through like a variation of the velocity of the ride. So yeah.
Mhm. Sweet. And then you mentioned about like, so for example, during the breakdown, you can add a cinematic sound or vibe to it. Yes.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, so I don't always have that in my tracks, but for the demo, that sound would definitely be a good way to transition to build up energy to the breakdown, or even build up energy within the breakdown itself, um, for the drop.
Mm.
So you could either do like play with the filter cutoff. That's like a really tried and true method. So what that does is basically the filter cuts out certain frequencies of your sound. So when you uh, bring the cutoff down, it'll take away more frequencies. But then when you gradually open the filter, it'll bring back those sounds and give your track more energy.
Any other? From the question on mixing low ends, you advise like you can listen through different environments like your phone, your earphones, speakers, etc. To get the feel of how it is. So, so for example, if you're listening through your laptop or phone, obviously for example, the kicks won't be so distinct compared to like speakers. How would you like advise like achieving that low end feeling, like hearing the kick properly still on either the phone or the laptop without having to pump it up super like high?
I would achieve that through adding in other dynamics on top of the kick that aren't specifically low end. You know, phone speakers, the earbuds, they're not going to have like that bass, but to give you the rhythm and the groove of the kick, you can definitely add in like another layer of higher something that like the low mid range that would help bring out the sound of the kick a little bit more. You're definitely not going to have to, you definitely shouldn't force sub in hardware that's not going to be able to produce it, because in other systems your track is not going to sound it's not going to sound great. So that's why you would listen to your track in different environments on different speaker systems, so you can get a sense of the track in those different environments. But yeah, my way of adding in that sense of the kick is to add in like layers on top of the kick and like a higher frequency range.
Thank you. Sweet. So we can check in to Budalagi. How's it going? So something else you can add to the mixing of the low ends is using an EQ and stripping out, like lowering or like completely cutting the low ends of other sounds to give room to, for example, the kicks in light of mixing kicks, and completely or lowering the high and mid frequencies in the kicks to give room for the kicks only. Yeah.
Yes. Though I don't always cut the higher frequencies in my kicks. For the example I gave before of the adding in like the higher frequency ranges for other systems. But yeah, definitely check every element in your track for that low end. I've had like simple hi-hats produce really like not audible, but like yeah, inaudible low end frequencies that after I cut the low end frequencies, made the track sound a lot better. So in my opinion, you should definitely either do a complete cutoff or a shelf of most elements in your track to give space to your kick. Yeah.
Right. Oh, nice. So you used different layers for today's demonstration. So for example, you had kicks. I'm assuming 2 samples of kicks. Oh,
No, that was just one sample.
oh, okay.
But
Hi,
sometimes
hello, hi, hello. Can you get a hand? They're probably hearing me on the thing.
Before I can hear you.
All right.
Marshall?
yeah, so with the kicks, most of the time I tend to use one kick, but there have been other times where I say, for example, like the transient of one kick, but then like the tail of another. So the transient is like that first initial like few milliseconds of the kick that basically tell you, okay, here's the kick. But then the tail is like the longer, bassier sound of the kick. So sometimes I'll EQ one kick, or I'll make like an envelope, for example, like I did with the shaker. I'll make an envelope to cut off the tail so that I just have the transient of a kick, and then I'll layer that on top of another kick to make a different sound, and then run them through the same mix channel so they both have the same audio processing, so they sound like one cohesive sound.
So which other elements did you use today? You mentioned, so the kicks, they had shakers. What else?
Some of the hi-hats, rides, the bass, which is supplied by a delayed kick, and then the other atmospheric elements. That could be anything from a sample that's been manipulated or a synth. Yeah, those are the two elements, the two other non-percussive elements that I use.
And are these usually like the main elements you use when you're creating a techno track?
Yes. So I tend to focus more on the ambiance and the vibe of the track, and that for me is achieved through sample manipulation and the synth modulation over time.
I'm taking notes. Wow. So in learning how to produce techno yourself, what was your like process of understanding? Were you like, would you listen to one of your favorite tracks and try deconstruct the elements you hear? Or what would you say are other ways used to understand yourself?
So I do listen to, obviously I listen to a lot of techno, but I don't think I've ever tried to deconstruct a track. That is like a really, really good way um, to learn. I just, I haven't done it before. Though when I'm listening to other tracks, if I hear an element or something, I will try to like recreate it in my tracks. Normally, um, you know, um, it doesn't come out exactly the way I want it to, but that's fine. It has my touch. As long as it sounds good, then it doesn't have to be like one to one. Um, and I've also learned over um, the course of my techno journey is just to practice and see what fits you best. I Before I've thought I had to fit in this box of, oh, I have to produce in this way only. But for me, the best way to achieve my sound is through sample manipulation and presets. And and honestly, there's nothing wrong with either one of those. As long as you achieve your goal, as long as the people on a dance floor are dancing your track, as long as the track sounds good and you like it, it doesn't really matter how you get there, as long as you're not like blatantly copy and pasting other people's songs.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, whatever methodology resonates with you is definitely the one that you should focus your energy in.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And one important lesson that I noted is that it's good to be organized so that you know where everything is. Because, yeah, that's something I've experienced with FL, like, or just generally any DAW, where you could be hearing something, something you'd like to change, but then it's like a journey tracing back to where you tweaked A, B, and C.
Yeah, exactly. It is good to be organized. I've seen projects from other producers that are like 100 tracks long, where it's like 100 mixer tracks, a bunch of elements and automation clips. It's not My projects don't normally go that big. I think the most I've had in one track would be like 25. But yeah, definitely staying organized is the best